Welcome, everyone. Today is July 25, 2024. And I thought I'll start stating the date because there's just so much things going on. And I am foreseeing in the future that whatever we're doing now will stay documented. So for those who will go back, because it's a long battle, as we all know. So welcome to Freedom International in our live stream. Roy Colan of Awakening Podcast, and yours truly, Grace Asagra of Quantum Nurse. We join together in this Freedom International live stream, and we welcome once again Anton Chaitkin, who we'd had before, but it's been a while. So I thought, wow, it's really time to invite Tony back. And it's a shame that most of us don't, or some of us, but I think most have begun to really study history because it's so confusing nowadays that if you want to truly understand your place in this history, you have to go back way, way, way back. And then you may have a little bit of and greater understanding to what your role is to make a contribution in this history. And of course, Anton Chaitkin is a well respected, of high integrity historian. And he's been quoted in other guests whom we've had, like Matthew Eric. So I know that he's one of those historians that you need to follow. And so welcome, Tony, and perhaps even without me saying more about you, why don't I let you tell our audience on who you are and who is Anton Chaitkin? What are the influences? Who is your family lineage, perhaps, that who influence you to do what you're doing? Because every one of us like have a red pill moment. So that's a common expression now. I said, when was your red pill moment? When was your red pill moment? So Tony, give us a background because we are talking about the who we are, especially your volume 2. But before the people could answer that who we are, maybe let us know who is Anton Chaitkin.
Well, I'm 81 years old. I've been researching and writing history for quite a long time. And I was part of the founders of the Lyndon LaRouche organization, movement, and back in actually 1966. My own father had been an activist and a lawyer fighting the Nazis before World War II, organizing a boycott against Nazis. I think right now we have a boycott by some people against Israel, which I think is similar in many ways to that boycott against the Germans when they were doing the wrong thing. But I learned about justice and things like that at an early age. And so we set up an organization with our own intelligence capabilities and our own study of history and the arts and philosophy and science to counter the ruin of those subjects under the imperial system that especially was imposed on us after Kennedy's murder. So recently, I wrote volume 1 of a 3-part series. This is the book that was published in 2024. A little glare there. It's called "Who We Are: America's Fight for Universal Progress from Franklin to Kennedy." So volume 1 was from the 1750s to the 1850s, and that goes through the founding of the country and the background of it and how we fought to get independent as a nation beyond that founding. And so recently, the last few weeks, I've finished writing volume 2, which takes the story up through the 19th century when the USA became powerful and established the basis for high living standards with industry. And who did that? Especially President Lincoln, and his friends who were all economic nationalists. So now we're in the editing phase and gathering the pictures and putting together the production. So it'll be out later this year, the volume 2. You can buy volume 1 now, and you can subscribe to my weekly posts on the Substack, antonchaitkin.substack. So I want to just give a little premise here, and then we could do a back and forth. But to give you some idea of what I believe in and what we need to understand, the preamble, that is the very first paragraph to the U.S. Constitution, says, "We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union," and of course now our union is very disunited, because there's no government that's promoting any what would keep us united, in order to establish justice. And for many people here and throughout the world, there is no justice. To ensure domestic tranquility. And of course, we have chaos in the United States. And as we were talking about earlier, in Europe, chaos, not just in Ukraine and Russia, but throughout the European Union, under this system that we have. Ensure domestic tranquility. This is the Constitution. Now, I'm reading the preamble. We don't have that tranquility, which would come from good jobs and peaceful communities. Provide for the common defense. And this is a terribly misunderstood idea, because you're not defended by going to war all over the world and having chaos and causing chaos and refugees and suffering. That's ensuring that you're going to be destroyed. Promote the general welfare. And this is really the fundamental idea, that the government has as its purpose and only justification that they promote the interests of the people of the country. If they don't do that, we said in our Declaration of Independence, you throw them out. You get rid of the government altogether. Or in our case, we set up a constitution where we could do this peacefully. And secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. That means that for the future, we're looking to the far future as well as our grandchildren's future, that we could have a better world. So we defeated the royalists in order to get our independence. And we built up our industries to give us the power to keep that independence. This is very important. Some of our leaders stuck to these American purposes, but others belonged to the economic royalist faction. After they killed the Kennedys and Dr. King, these economic royalists took us over to the imperial system or globalist system. They demolished our manufacturing. I just made a few notes. That's what I'm glancing down here. They demolished our manufacturing and farming and put us under the globalist system, losing our independence. They made wars all over the world. What's the point? To stop rising countries from becoming powerful and independent. That's the purpose of these wars. America's founding promised a free and prosperous people. But our enemies inside and outside the country were the slavery men, the imperialists, the royalists. They didn't believe in self-government of the people in our own country or for other countries. Then in the 20th century, and this is going to be in volume 3, Franklin Roosevelt taught us to fight for the 4 freedoms. And again, we have to understand what he was saying to us, because now our government, our leaders, our real leaders, don't believe in any of these freedoms. Freedom of speech for all the world's people. That's canceled. We have surveillance in all of the English-speaking countries, and they work together against their own populations to surveil them and cancel their speech. freedom of worship for all the world's people. Well, what about in the Holy Land? There is no freedom of worship. There's chaos and destruction and mass murder. So there's no freedom of religion except for the most extreme, uh, uh, you know, Armageddon freaks. Uh, Freedom from want, which means freedom from poverty for all the world's people. These are the four freedoms of Roosevelt: freedom of speech, freedom of worship, freedom from want for all the world's people. That means ending poverty. And freedom from fear, which means cooperation with other countries to end war, which is terrorizing mankind. So from fear means you stop the wars. You stop them now, and that could be done very quickly with the right policy. These freedoms taught by Roosevelt complete the promise of the preamble to our Constitution, which promised a better life for all of our people. And of course, it didn't apply to many of our people. We gained some freedoms by the Civil War, but right now we're in a very bad place. The United States needs to play that leadership role again that Roosevelt and Lincoln both exemplified. In recent times, our leaders do not believe in any of these four freedoms, but those freedoms will save us from destruction. So that's the basic premise of this, what I'm writing. And it's the details on how we got what beautiful legacy we have, including better living standards and including the friendship and promotion of friendship and rights of other countries. By rights, I don't mean that they have the right to worship international corporations or pay triple debts to the International Monetary Fund or to be involved in some war that some drone person selects. What the rights of the people are to rise to have a good life. And if China's helping them do that, and Russia's helping them do it, if the U.S. ought to step in and be the leader of that. Why can't we build dams and power plants in Africa? They have lots of coal, they have uranium, build lots of power plants. That's the challenge. Do we care about the human race and our own people or not? That's the challenge. We were the leader of the fight for progress in the world, and we need to be that leader again. Not excluded. I'm not relying on the people of the so-called global South to do that. They need the United States, but they don't need the United States to make war on them and sanction them. So this is a powerful contradiction, right? That's the idea.
Thank you, Tony. That was a perfect reading of the preamble. But before I respond to that reading, I just want to bring to the attention of our audience also that Tony is the son of Jacob Chaitkin, who was a pro Franklin Roosevelt lawyer. And remember, for those who might have forgotten, Franklin Roosevelt had attempted assassination as well. So his father, Tony's father, blocked some of Wall Street's financial arrangements in their sponsorship of the Hitler regime. And Tony grew up committed to justice, as he mentioned earlier, with a strong sense of the realities of power politics. You see, Tony didn't have to do much, to be successful in his life, but that commitment to have that sense of justice brings him to us in this very moment. So, Tony, the Constitution seemed to be, it's of in my understanding and the way I look at it, it's obvious that it is found written by our founding fathers in a way that could be our guidance for what's going on now. But I guess there's a difference with how beautiful it's written as to how it is being executed, because as you said, every line doesn't seem to fit of our reality. So I guess when you titled your book "Who We Are you making an assumption, or are you you're having that theory that the problem with Americans right now is we don't know who we are, And that reminds me, as a holistic practitioner in health, that if you don't know who you are, it's hard to get better as well. So, is that what your
I
thoughts
think that's right in a certain way. I would put it more positively. Let's say that you are the spiritual counselor to a person who's troubled, and that person throughout their lives and in their own family background, but they themselves personally have done some amazing and beautiful things to aid in them, to their family, to aid mankind, to do some art, whatever it is, something really beautiful. But at other times, they have fallen into terrible ways. They've forgotten who they were at their best. When you're trying to help them, you're not a prison warden unless you're really helpful. But if you're trying to help them as a spiritual counselor, don't you emphasize that when they did these wonderful things, used their talents for the betterment of people, including themselves and their family, wasn't that who they are? Isn't that what you would stress if you were a spiritual counselor? That's who you are. And of course, that's how, if you believe in God, then that's what God wants us to be. That's what we were created to do good. And that makes us happy. And that certainly, all the good philosophy shows that doing good makes you happy. I think of all the people that I've covered in my writing, Benjamin Franklin probably was the happiest of them, although he had terrible troubles and hardships, but he did so much good in the world, and he had so much fun doing it, and had such a biting sense of humor that doing good is proven to make you happy. And so that's what we were put on this earth to do, right? To be happy by doing good. And so that's who we are. We have this amazing legacy as a people. And of course, we've done other things, which I point out in volume 2 about, murdering Indians, or especially stealing their land. But there was land enough for everyone. You could still have the American civilization being built up. You could have modern times and industry and family farming, which is not the same thing as the Indians, but they could teach us things. But there was plenty of room for everybody. And we repeatedly took land that the Indian tribes or nations were using, and lied to them, and broke every treaty. So this is something side by side with the great accomplishment. Slavery, of course, is the same thing. The slavery is something that we were given as part of the British Empire, and when the colonists tried to get rid of it, the crown said, no, that's our system. You can't abolish slavery. And that was during the revolutionary times. And we eventually came to a civil war about that. So we've done bad things, and we continue to do bad things, worse, I would say now, around the world. But that's not who we are. If you say that America is simply rotten, look at its history, they're all racist and rotten, and that's all they are, then what are you saying to the people, the growing number of impoverished people in Africa, who actually there's somewhat less poverty in Asia because of development programs. In Africa, they're just starting to get those programs, to build dams, to get power plants, to get high-speed trains that they must have in order to get into capabilities for rising to a better life. Are we saying to them that that's wrong? We don't want China involved. We don't want Russia involved. We don't want to harm the environment for hippos. So therefore, you should remain impoverished and not have food for your people, because we say it's not good for you, and we don't want these other countries helping you to resist the rules that we in England set for the world. This is sad, because we used to be the people that helped other countries to develop. We didn't always do that, especially when our slave owners were in control, or people, scoundrels like Teddy Roosevelt, or the Dulles brothers. So this right now is our our problem, to say to people, to show people, as I'm trying to do in these books, that we we are best defined as those talented and energetic people that do good.
With Africa, I mean, like there was a lot of countries, Belgium, France, destroying the Africans for years, but the whole thing was like trickery. Because even if you look at the map, they made Africa look like it was small compared to its original size. And you
Yeah.
know, like every like
Oh,
if you look at even America now, like all the military bases, as you say, they could go in and do massive things, but they're not. They're just surrounding Africa with military bases in the guise of protection, like they're kind of protecting all these other countries. And what happens is they're providing the armaments, but then they have the contracts to go in and fix all the stuff, and it's not competitive tendering. It's like here, our own people are going in to rebuild it. So it's a whole money game. That's just the money flowing through the whole system.
well, it's best to think of the positive side of this thing. What's wrong with this system? You see it better if you look at the positive side. Africa has tremendous resources. First of all, the sun shines a lot, and so you can use the sun to grow plants. And also, Africa has huge water resources because the sun drives the clouds and the storms to give you rain. And you have this terrific water resource base of Great Lakes and wonderful rivers. And in some parts of the continent, it's dry, so you just take the water where you need it with engineering. And they also have terrific mineral resources. And I'm not talking about diamonds and gold. You know, if you go to heaven and try to bring your gold there, the St. Peter would say, "Why are you bringing pavement up to heaven? We don't need that. The heavens paved with gold." But the real resource, the mineral resources, are iron and cobalt and other constituents of steel. Uh, they are uranium, as I mentioned. They're coal. They have tremendous coal resources. You can have a fairly clean burning coal plant, and they have oil. And so, for the meantime, you need all of these ways to develop electricity and to power up a modern society where that can be relied on, so the hospital lights don't go out, and so that the schools can be lighted. If you tell them, don't use the resources, they don't belong to you, they belong to multinational corporations, or in a sense, even worse than multinational corporations, are the financial centers that simply play financial games with all the world's wealth and turn it into, billions, trillions, and trillions in crazed assets that are traded in different ways, gambling and swindling. That's the system of offshore banks that really controls now all this so-called Western economy. It's not the Western ideals. Imperialism is not really Western ideals. The Western ideals come from the Renaissance and from the great advances in Greece and Egypt, and then later Spain under the Muslims. The idea of the dignity of the individual, the dignity of workers who are skilled, the greatest art, and the power of a nation state that is self-governing. Those are all good Western ideas. Some kings actually subscribed to those. Not most of them, but some did in France and England. And now we don't believe in Western ideals, but we say we do when we go in and say you have to obey the so-called West. Well, what about the USA? We didn't obey the imperialists, and we got to be powerful by disobeying them and by promoting the welfare of our own people and of other countries. As I point out in the last chapter of this book I just wrote, volume 2, it's entitled America and the World. goes into how we help these other countries to develop.
You mentioned the financial. I see that it looks like they're trying to manipulate the Turkish lira as well. I see that there's billions going in there, that they're devaluating their currency. So we know the Soros done that to the English pound.
The British pound,
Yeah. So like it's sad. That's the market we're living in, that they can control these things. So like what you're doing, you're showing the positive of what was done before, which what we need. Like a lot of people are trying to find out the truth and look at different things. So like, for example, our last episode, I got kicked off Spotify with that episode with Scott Bennett, and YouTube. I've been removed from YouTube and everything. It's like when you're sharing information which can kind of make change, they don't want it to be seen. And it's very hard for a lot of people to get the message out. Have you experienced any kind of censorship or kind of trying to remove your stuff?
Not in the same way. What we experienced when as all the years that I've been an activist, for the last few years, because of family concerns, I've been working on my own to do the writing and so forth. But what we experienced was that some people call the deep state. It's not all in the government, even. It's basically in private agencies and in banking and international enterprises. But this faction, the transnationalists, do make decisions for us. And people talk about conspiracy theories, and they focus on the evil that these leaders, these unseen leaders, do. It's the wrong way to think about it. If you challenge them by going for the heart of the people and say there's a better life, you have a better life with great culture, great art, great music, and with fighting for jobs and fighting against drugs in your community, let's have a better life. Let's have a future of dignified human beings and families that are supported. And if you fight for that kind of better culture, you're taking on these international gangsters directly. And we found that out when they went after us again and again and employed the FBI to do it. These agencies are not independent. The people say, oh, these agencies run the world. That's ridiculous. There's a history of a power structure in imperialism. It was centered in Amsterdam and Geneva and Venice, and then it all got concentrated in London. And for many centuries, the British were sort of the headquarters for this imperial system. But that's the system that we opposed in order to build up the USA all throughout our history, whenever we had good leadership. So we discovered, when I was an activist in U.S. Political organizing, that when you go after the system and promote the other system, the American system, which is higher culture. It's not just material things. It's spiritual and it's beautiful art. Then these guys come after you. Many of my friends went to prison, and for long terms on spurious charges. But the greatest fun that we had was when it would go into the headlines and we would see right behind the headline. We could tell what was going to happen the next day because we're right up head to head with these bankers, like the Rockefellers and like the Dulles faction in the CIA. And we had friends in government. We had friends in diplomacy and in science. And so you see how these people have power and how vulnerable they are if you challenge this illegitimate way of running things. We are entitled to self-government, which is and to have a government that's strong enough to resist this international power. Right now, the international power runs the government in many, many respects, especially you have to look at it from the foreign policy. That controls the domestic policy. What we do within the world, that world system actually controls our country. So what's the alternative world system? Republics that are friendly with one another. And I'm talking about powerful republics. So Russia and China and Iran and North Korea and Cuba and Venezuela should all be powerful countries. Then they would be much more likely to be our friends. It's counterintuitive, perhaps, to people. But if you help countries on our model of what we did to make ourselves supremely powerful, and we help them like we did, like we helped Japan and Germany and other countries in the 19th century and after World War II even, but especially 19th century, we built these countries up. So if you do that, you have friends, and you have a peaceful world because you're not divided by the imperialists to fight people on the basis of race or religion or some other spurious division. So it's a different way of looking at the world. The American in the past. Go ahead.
Have you gone down the kind of route? Because, like, I was talking to somebody recently about, like, he's using the affidavits in the courts to get them to kind of more on the common law, because they bring in all these laws and acts, and it's not common law, which is basically common sense. And if we're bringing that back to the individual country, which in turn stops all the craziness, but it kind of involves grassroots levels that people get involved to make sure that they look after their own little towns, their own little schooling systems and everything. Have you actually gone into kind of, like, say, sovereignty and common law?
Yes, and it doesn't work. It's wrong. It's totally wrong. It's a wrong approach. I mean, I admire the impulse that where people see their lives being ruined in many ways, and school systems being filled up with garbage. Instead of tolerance, we have children being turned into crippled people and clowns. Like a drag queen. Is that a happy person? Is that a model for children? Should we be tolerant of people who have a different sexual orientation? That's their business. It's everybody's just private business. The government shouldn't meddle in that. But we see rotten interference, which is being tolerated by both parties in America. The Democrats are promoting this garbage, and the Republicans, at least the party itself, is opposed to the protection of families, economically and otherwise. Think about that. If you say that people should have babies, should they remain poor because of your stupid economic philosophy? Think about that. If you want to have 4 children or 5 children, you need to have high wages. You need to have good jobs, industrial and scientific jobs. And you need to end discrimination of all kinds. Republicans don't believe in that, and the Democrats don't believe in industry. So you got a real mess. So how do you fight this? This is a global system. And the system right now think about this. I want you to really run this through in your mind. The global system at the present excludes the influence of the United States of America. If that sounds crazy, think it through. I showed in volume 2, I haven't published it yet, but I've written a lot about this anyway, before this, how the US worked with Japan and Germany to help them build up manufacturing when they were more backward. Japan in particular was a feudalist country, and we helped them with our ambassador there, helping to do everything possible that they could get, railroads and steel making. We had just developed steel making, defying the international free trade system. We defined it, and we wanted them to defy that free trade system and have their own protection. So we did this in many countries. We helped Russia in the same way. This is under the Tsars. They built a great railroad with American locomotives, the Trans-Siberian. So we had an influence in the world. Lincoln's America had, and also Franklin Roosevelt's America. Very influential with the African nationalists and other nationalists, even Iran nationalists. Not the theocracy people, but the real nationalists. So we had a great influence in the world. The British Empire were horrified by the American influence that was helping other countries to rise to power. Roosevelt wanted the America and England and Russia and China to be the four policemen of the world. And if other countries joined with them and accepted that kind of leadership, to impose a peace on the world. This stuff in the Middle East would never happen if you had the large countries working together to say, I'm sorry, we will not allow this kind of warfare to go on. It's gone on for 75 years. So that was American influence. That was Roosevelt. That was George Washington originally. It was Abraham Lincoln. That's America. That kind of American influence is not in the world now. We are under the globalist system, and the globalist system uses American power, military and other power, illegitimately to impose poverty and chaos on the world. That's not American influence. You know, some people say America is the great and shining country, beacon on the hill, and always will be, and we do nothing wrong. Some other people say America is rotten, has always been rotten, racist. Columbus should never have discovered these shores. Both of these are wrong. We have to look at who we have been at our best and what happened to that, especially with the triple murders in the 1960s and the beginning of the wars that were against our interests. Is the war on Gaza in American interest? Are we building up hatred for us and our proxies? The Zionist proxy? That's the Anglo-American system. Are we building up friends and power in the world? We have no influence in the world now. We need to have that influence.
So Tony, who created the globalist system and who leads that? Who rules it?
The globalist system goes back in time a long way to ancient empires. And it was when Venice was a power, it relied a great deal on trade, maritime trade. The Roman Empire had armies, but the British and Dutch and other countries in Europe who were established a system of financial control and financial influence and trade. The center of that became the East India trade and also the African slave trade. But the East India Company, established in the 1600s for Holland and then for England, used their power over India and their power to use opium from India to addict and enslave China. They used their power over Asia, different parts of Asia, under constant warfare. They used that power to set the model for what would happen. And the globalist system is based on a very simple fact. Hold on one second. Hold that. I got to turn off this noise. Yeah, just wait until I'm done. Wait till I'm done. I'll be done soon. I'm sorry. So here's the globalist system could be boiled down to one great transition. In the 1700s, late 1700s, the people in England, the best, smartest people there who were friends of Benjamin Franklin, who lived there for 18 years under colonial times, they developed new inventions, the steam engine. They built the canals. These are all friends of Benjamin Franklin, who built up England in their power, modern power. And then this East India Company faction took complete control of the English government and said, you're not going to defeat the Americans in a war overseas. We don't have the power to defeat them militarily. But what we have to do is prevent America and Ireland and France and other countries from getting this modern industrial power and having science and technology and manufacturing for themselves. If they get this power, then what power will we have over them? They won't need us to control them, their finances and so forth. So they developed this theory called free trade that said other countries do not have the right to have their own governments protecting their own industries in those countries. We have to have what they called free trade, even though England was constantly, they have a top-down system, an empire. The government and the military and the intelligence, it's all one thing in the British Empire. And they interfered everywhere in the world. So it was completely a lying system. Free trade is always a lie. So that's where so right from the time of the American Revolution is when this globalist system was established against the USA. And people who believed in free trade, remember opium, the right to sell opium to people who are trying to resist you, that's free trade. They're interfering with free trade. How about the right of the slave owners to sell their cotton to England and to get manufactured goods cheap? Let them spin the cotton into clothes for the slaves and we'll import it. We don't want any stupid industries in the South. We have free trade with England. Whereas the Northern patriots said, no, let's build up industries here. And the Southern people with any money will invest in skilled labor and they won't get any money out of slaves. Slaves are not very productive because they're not allowed to learn to read and write or anything. They're kept backward on purpose, like they keep whole countries backward. They kept Ireland backward, one of the most knowledgeable countries in the world. India was the same. India had huge industries before the British went in and robbed them of it. So that's the British Empire is the globalist system, and we just adopted that in recent times as our system. But who imposed that on us? We didn't vote for that. Did people in Ohio vote to take down their manufacturing plants and take opioids instead? They didn't vote for that. Did they vote to have a Vietnam War? Our president who tried to get out of that was murdered by these people. They killed our presidents. When the murder of Kennedy, like the earlier murder of McKinley, and I believe both of those were definitely a coup d'etat in our country. And the murder of Lincoln was an attempt at a coup d'etat, but we didn't completely go under that. And we rallied. So that's the globalism is the old British Empire system, which is America's traditional and never-ending enemy. Not England. Despite what Irish people feel about it, justifiably, England nor any other country is purely evil. Every country has some greatness in it, some poets, some scholars, some people doing good. And so we have to look to that in every country. But empires are built for the purpose of subordinating and destroying other people for the benefit of some clique that runs the empire.
Where do you think we're going to go, especially in the near 2025? And lately, since the failed assassination of Trump, seems like, and what I've been observing in the international news is leaders are hurrying up or panicking, making connection with Trump, and for whatever reason they
Like
think.
Zelensky. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, as a historian, and you did say that you can, yeah, when you were working with LaRouche, you can kind of foresee. So what do you think would be, happening, or what should we look for, anticipate?
Um, well, what we have to do is uh, always scold ourselves if we are only doing a forecast based on spectator, forward viewing. We don't want to be spectators. We can forecast, but it's based on what needs to happen. That's the way you want to do a forecast. And if you don't do certain things as a country or for policy, then something bad is going to happen. If you do certain things, you have a chance to go in the right direction. So the Trump, remember, there was an attempt at a coup d'etat against Trump before he even got elected, because he indicated that he was going to give up Obama's conflict with Russia, and he was going to violate free trade and go back to American manufacturing. And this whole thing with Mexico and Central America, the real thing that has to be concentrated on is building up those countries to become modern, powerful countries. If you do that, then you've solved the problem in every way. The Republican Party, to the extent that Trump is different from the Republican Party, then he's any good. So when he rants and raves about immigrants, being rapists or what have you, it's really not that useful. Millions of people flooding across the border is not a good idea. What do you want to do about it? Well, who caused the problem? The British in 1782 caused the problem. It's called the free trade system. Bill Clinton had the NAFTA program, where you say, well, we're going to close down manufacturing plants in the United States and open them up in Mexico, and we're not going to pay the people in Mexico what we paid the people in Detroit. There's your problem right there. And it's similar things. It's not just the manufacturing. It's the International Monetary Fund makes loans to these countries only for the purpose of repaying old loans on worse conditions, not just higher interest rates, but they say you have to. We'll pay your old debt if you promise not to try to build a power plant in your country, and don't let any nationalists run your government. That's called conditionalities for the loan. So this is the system that the Democrats go along with. The Republicans have that system as a religion. Think about this. What is the Republican religion? It's free trade. It's Adam Smith. It's Calvin. It's Geneva. It's the Austrian school. And this religion is in place of Christianity. They don't believe in Christianity if you believe that people should be poor and they should accept that poverty unless they're somehow granted, unless the system grants them a job. People don't have the right to a decent job. Baloney. Where's your Christian ideas? What happened to your Christianity? So the two parties right now, to the extent that Trump could get away from that and could be protected to deliver something rather than simply antagonizing everybody, that would work. He could get peace in Ukraine very quickly, and he could work something out between us and the other countries, U.S., Russia, China, and other countries, on the basis of just some more in-depth, old-style diplomacy. It doesn't all have to be public. And we just have to take some steps in that direction. If you get peace in one place, people are going to be so shocked by that, then anything would be possible. So that's the real way that we are going to go towards fixing our problems is by the United States having influence again in the world. Today, we don't have any influence. We send bombs everywhere. We have, as you pointed out, military bases all over the place. What are they for? There's wars all over Africa. What good has our military bases done? Well, they obviously serve some other purpose than, or enrich somebody, I don't know, for other than keeping stability. So American influence, to the extent that a president would do American influence, then good influence, then we're going to solve our problems. Now, the vice president is now running, or supposedly going to run, against Trump. Also, Robert Kennedy Jr. is a candidate, and he's shaken up the race to a certain extent. But what is the Democratic Party? If it's the party of Roosevelt, then it's the rightful leadership of our country, as far as I'm concerned. If it's the party of Truman, which was his power was his point of view was largely given to him as president by Winston Churchill. I'm talking about after World War II. Churchill was one of the leading imperialists in the world. He was pro-fascist before he was anti-fascist. And so he told Truman, the world has to be divided between communism and capitalism. And what is our system? Is our system capitalism? Our system is certainly not communism. But what is our system? Our system is the U.S. Constitution. Our system is the betterment of the people. That includes labor unions. That includes high wages. That includes education for classical learning and for learning of science and being engineers, not being freaks. That's our system. It's the benefit of the people. So when Churchill told Truman, you're going to divide the world into communist and capitalist, it wasn't really even capitalist. It was NATO, which became something gruesome. I believe NATO killed Kennedy. If you really look at the people behind that, like General Lemnitzer, who Kennedy fired, and Allen Dulles, who Kennedy fired. These are transnational people. So that division of the world was disaster, and both parts. What the president needs to tell the people, if we get a good president, is that the system that we've been living under since the death of Kennedy has not been our system. We need to go back to our system, which is it's in the preamble of the Constitution, and it's in the regimes in many ways, of Lincoln and FDR. A president that explains where we went wrong and does it explicitly from history, not just vague things about make America great again. Slavery wasn't great, killing Indians wasn't great, but we did great things. So what do we mean by that? What did we mean when we did good in the world? When Thomas Edison I have a whole chapter on Edison. He had partners all over the world. And he personally brought electric power to the people of this planet, starting in the US. He built the power plants himself against the intended sabotage of J.P. Morgan and his Wall Street friends and his British friends. And that's documented. and people will go all crazy hearing about these things. It's not just that they bring up Tesla or some other thing. Any kind of real American achievement, people go crazy about that now. They say it's all ruthless capitalists, it's all ruthless this or that. And they don't pay attention to what people need. People need electricity. Maybe you don't think so. Try charging your stupid cell phone without electricity. Try getting anywhere without electricity. Try having a house. People need these steel. They need the space program, which brought us many modern things. They need all kinds of things, which our civilization, and America in particular, played a wonderful role in developing. The whole world needs these things, and other countries are going ahead with them or trying to. We should join them. We should exert our influence in that positive direction. But that's the forecast. We have a chance after this election to go forward. And if people can just somehow find it in themselves to stop, I would say it's almost the panic about Trump is a kind of a form of pornography, sort of. You really get off on, oh my God, this is the end of the universe. It's like global warming. It's the end of the universe. And not paying attention to what's gone wrong in the country since the murder of Kennedy. Focus on that and how to make that right. And we'll do fine.
Thank you, Tony. It's a perfect ending. We had a perfect beginning with the preamble, and now it's perfect ending with your thoughts. And thank you for everything that you do. Continue and invite our audience to where they could get in touch with you.
Yeah. So it's a Substack, Substack. I have a subscription thing. It's Anton Chaitkin.substack.com. You can get this book on Amazon, and I've posted about 90 different articles and the chapters from my forthcoming book on that Substack. So get in touch with me that way. There's free subscriptions or paid subscriptions. I got to get the money to to produce and publish the book. So that'll help. But I'd like to be in touch with you. You can write to me. You can make comments on the website, and you can help me do what I do and help my friends do it, and be of good cheer and have fun doing it.
Yes. So, and if you are looking for quantum resonance supplements, you can contact me. I am an official registered nurse, holistic nurse. So don't hesitate, please. And right now, they said that a lot of neurological, neurodegenerative situations are rising up. People who are diagnosed with maybe pre-autistic, do contact me as well, because I do healing frequencies. It's self-healing. So it's just the frequency stimulates your own body to heal. But these are advanced quantum medicine, and it's available. And this is, again, as Tony said, if we focus on the good things that we have created. So a lot of, a number of European countries, Russia, China, United States, have created all these advanced, then we would know how to combat this critical situation that we're in it. And it's in exciting times. So don't forget, always like, share, and subscribe. And remember, Hartmut is also one of our co-host, and he also extends his greetings, although he's not here regularly. But above all, I always welcome and want to give a special shout out for Roy, who's always been my regular partner in co-hosting. Okay, so don't forget to always connect with Roy Colan in all connections.
Thank you, Roy, and thank you, Grace, for your help, and long live the Irish.
Long live all of us who are trying
right.
to contribute to this history, to better it. Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Right. So I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. As mentioned at the start, you'll find my 6 podcasts on bio.link/podcaster. And also, if you'd like to start a podcast or do a podcasting tour, you'll find the information on that or on the QR code that's there. Be sure to give us a thumbs up, 5-star rating, and share with your friends because it really helps. And also, I'd like to thank DanielPackard.com, helping people with fear, doubt, and anxiety. He's got a 90% success rate and he's only charging if he helps you. So be sure to check him out and you get a free call to discuss everything. Until next week, take care.